And welcome, brothers, sisters, working class heroes. This is The Rick Smith Show. Thanks so much for being here. Today on the big program, lots to get to, lots to talk about. What an interesting kind of juxtaposition here. You've got this billionaire, the founder of this Patagonia company, basically just going, yep, giving the company away, giving the $3 billion company, just giving it away. Going to give it to a pair of trusts with the mandate that, well, all of their profits, about $100 million a year, go specifically to fighting climate change. You go, whoa, socially responsible businesses can't exist. You know, people who care about somebody else, the next generation, the future, a legacy. And this is what I've been saying about the very wealthy. You know, Bezos could have a legacy, really could. He could have a legacy of being the greatest human in the history of humanity. Using his wealth in a much more, well, useful way, other than shooting, phallic-looking rockets up into space. Could have a much bigger role in the future of humanity. I don't know, figuring out how to do some stuff around saving the planet, helping rebuild a prosperous working class so people have hope and opportunity and unite the country together. Yeah, no, it's just easier to shoot phallic things, well, into places. Yeah. Now, I take that because this is where I go, oh, there's hope. There is hope. There's some hope that maybe, humanity's not all ugly. And then I look at the reality of, the stories coming out today. And I've been spending a lot of time looking at the potential of a rail strike on Friday or a lockout. Don't know which way this is going. But rail service stopping across the country. And look, as someone who spends a lot of time in the rail yards, I know nobody who works in them is happy because they're overworked, they're underpaid, they're underappreciated, it's a tough, dangerous job. And you have the rail barons who are wildly, wildly profitable. And yet the jobs they're not that great. It's not even, look, working people aren't asking to make a killing. They just want to make a living. They just want to make ends meet. They just want life to get better. They want opportunity. And what's interesting to me is I look at someone like Warren Buffett, who famously said, it's class warfare, and my class is winning. But we shouldn't be. Understanding that the vast majority of us support workers and support an economy that works for all and a tax code. Even Buffett talks about this. It's insane that he pays a lower tax rate than his secretary. But yet, here we are in this moment that, the Buffett investor class is winning this class war. And why is that? Well, because of just how easy it is to divide you and me and we in the working class. How easy it is to pit us against each other and create these fires of us, looking at our neighbors with a side eye. And I'm looking at the news reports. I'm looking at how it's being presented. I'm looking at what Republicans are proposing. And look, there are some Democrats who are quietly saying, maybe we should force those people not to go on strike or just shove that contract that the Presidential Emergency Board proposed, shove that down their throat, just jam it right down their throat, make them, because, hey, they have the power to do that. We're in this moment where we in the working class they're throwing us propaganda. And that propaganda is to be angry at those employees, at those workers, the people we used to call frontline heroes, the people we used to call essential. You remember them? Yeah, I know you remember them. We're supposed to be angry at them because, well, what do they want? Now, mainstream media throwing out, the Presidential Emergency Board was going to give them a huge raise, 24% increase over the life of the contract. They're going to get a $1,000 bonus. They're going to get all the issue's not money, man. The issue is not money here. The issue is, can you get a day off? And it comes back to that frame. An old Romanian guy I used to know. He always said, am I here to? I came to this country so I could work. I could work to live. I came from a place where I lived to work, and that's a real important distinction. These people want to be able to work to live. They want to be able to put a roof over their kid's head, put food on the table, opportunities for them, all that stuff. The things that we all want. The reason we all go to work. These folks, these engineers and these conductors, they don't get that. They don't get days off. And I think this is where a real explanation has to happen in the working conditions of these folks. Because again, as I say, people unionize and people bargain and strike and all that stuff over wages, hours, conditions. Conditions being, in this day right now, the most important part of all of these discussions. These are people who do not have a day off. Nothing. You go, but Rick, they're, we need them on the job. Yeah, we do. And if they're sick and if they die, we don't have them either. This is one of those things where understanding their conditions. Walk with me, if you will, because I actually know a little bit about this. I was on call myself for 11 years. But we had, after so many days, you had time off. They don't get any guaranteed time off. So 30 days a month, 12 months a year, 365 days in that year, they're waiting for a phone to ring, whether it's at home or in a hotel 1,000 miles from home. They're waiting for that phone. And this is what the rail industry has built their profitability on the lives of people who are sacrificing so that their kids and their future can be better. And I don't think you should have to sacrifice one for the other, especially in this day of technological advance. Now, understand, like I said, I spend a lot of time in rail yards. Antiquated equipment. The technology, when you talk to these people, the technology is years old. In this day and age, you really want me to believe that you can't schedule somebody within a couple of hour block? And as profitable as the rail system is, you can't absorb that minor cost so that people can have lives, so that people can plan to go to their kids' soccer game once in a while, so people can go to their kids' weddings at some point, a doctor appointment, any of that. This is what this is about. This is about dignity. This is about life-work balance. Don't be distracted by, they're just greedy. It's not about the greed. But what we're going to be sold, and this is the important part, and this is where Republicans in the Senate, today you're trying to ram through a mandate that they have to take the Presidential Emergency Board's recommendations. Richard Burr of North Carolina, Roger Wicker of Mississippi, they want to move through and do it quickly on a resolution to require railroad workers to accept the labor deal. You have to do it. And this is Republican world. This is you want to know the difference between the two? You want to know the difference between Democrats and Republicans? This is a huge one. Because Republicans don't want workers to have rights. You will do what you're told, when you're told, how you're told, and you have nothing. Because understand, in most states, like mine in Pennsylvania, the employer-employee relationship is still that of master and servant. Once you cross that threshold into the employer's realm, you are theirs. They can make you do just about anything, as long as it's not against the law, because we do have some laws, few, but some. But you're basically their property. And we've got Republican senators right now going, we're gonna take the only right that working people have away. The only right that we as workers have is the right to fold our arms and march our feet. The right to not work, to withhold our labor. And they're saying, no, we're going to take that away from you. Even if you're not a union member, even if you're not in the railroad, and look, and if you're like me, worried what this is going to do to the economy, and I'm sure the White House is worried what this is going to do to the economy, we as working people in this moment can send a message to the investor class. Because what the big money people are planning on is that we're going to attack the workers, that we're going to eat each other. And again, this isn't right-left. This isn't Democrat-Republican as much as this is up-down. This is the people in their ivory towers, the CEOs in their boardrooms and the penthouses dictating the terms of someone's life that they don't even know, just a number on a balance sheet. And this is where you and me, we can send them a message and say, no, we won't be divided. We're not going to buy the nonsense. Every worker should have dignity. Every worker should have the ability to work to live, not live to work. And that's what this is about. So if someone says, well, you know, they get paid really well, so they're going to have, no, it's not about the money. It's not the money. It's the time off. It's the time with family. And ask yourself, I mean, seriously, ask yourself. Let's say you made double the wages you make now. Would it be worth missing every birthday, missing every football game, every baseball game, every event, every concert? Would it be worth missing your entire child's growing up, missing your spouse? You know, I've always said, and look, I've been in the trucking business a bunch of years. I've always believed that if you're not at home keeping your side of the bed warm, somebody will be. Think of the number of broken families because, hey, you know, there's you're tethered to this company. Is that worth it? And I know people say, well, you know, they can quit. Yeah, they don't like it. They can go somewhere else. And that's such a defeatist mentality. That's where my idea is, how about we make things better so no one has to endure the kind of struggle and the kind of abuse that this is. This is abuse. And the union finally is stepping forward. The workers are finally saying enough. And in this moment, after the pandemic, after showing up through all of what happened through there, and then being told how wonderful they were, they're saying, hey, we want to be treated as such. And we want a day off so we can take care of ourselves. We can take care of our children. We can take care of our families. Is that too much to ask? So if a strike happens or if a lockout happens because the Buffetts of the world demand it, when things get tough, remember this, because it's not the workers. No worker wants to go on strike. But if it means that you're going to be able to right a wrong, you do it. And you follow it through to the end. And I'll tell you, I'm with these miners, or these railroad workers, and the miners down in Alabama, and the workers across this country doing it. But I'd love to hear your thoughts. Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com, or give us a call, 1-866-416-RICK, 1-866-416-7425. Right back.
If you're a fan of the show, you've heard our labor history in 2 segments, and you can hear them on the radio pretty much anywhere in the U.S. Labor history has never been more important than it is right now. So here's what we'd like you to do. Tell a teacher. Tell a teacher that labor history is important and that they can get digestible 2-minute lessons that are absolutely free. Free to download, free to use, free to share. Tell a teacher to go to thericksmithshow.com/history and help us put labor back where it belongs, in the classroom. You know, generations of American workers fought, bled, and died to build the American way of life. It's our job to keep their stories alive. Go tell a teacher that we're here to help them do just that. Find us at thericksmithshow.com/history today.
Welcome back to The Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
I mean, you look at the reality of the rail industry last year alone, $20 billion in profit. 20 billion with a B. $20 billion in profit. Their CEOs, the CEOs of Union Pacific and Norfolk Southern, made over $40 million each in compensation. And you're going to tell me that sorry guys, we need you to work every day for your entire career. We need you to forego that childhood. Forget all that stuff. You're a railroad guy. That's what you do. That's who you are. So that, because we need 41 million next year, or 40 million and $1 more. Because as I talked about yesterday on the program, I can't imagine that having a schedule for these guys and these women, I can't imagine that this would cost them all that much. And what it might do, it might actually keep people in the job, because I know people who say, well, you don't like it, you can leave. A lot of people are leaving. And they're having an enormous problem. And again, in a moment when we're talking about we have supply chain issues, the rail being a huge part of that. Now, understand, we're heading towards it. I think the rail wants this. They're already paring things down. I was in the rail yard last night, and basically people were bobtailing in, just the tractor going in and pulling trailers out. I don't think I've seen the rail yard as empty as it's been, as it was yesterday, in a very long time. So they're preparing, and they're preparing and I think all the shippers and all the trucking companies are preparing as well. This is bad. This is bad all around. And this comes back to the companies who could easily give these workers the dignity that all of us demand. It's that simple. And look, this is where we have to unite. We have to unite in this moment and stand together. Here's an interesting, funny, crazy story. Welcome to Pennsylvania. This is going to be the weird part. We've got a guy running for governor who wants to make Pennsylvania the Florida of the Northeast. So I'm thinking about, maybe we should start it instead, because everyone's heard of the Florida man frame. Maybe Pennsylvania man is coming. Pennsylvania man is coming right up behind, because on Saturday, 61-year-old guy out in Westmoreland County, dressed in a bright yellow vest, a rainbow wig, carrying a handgun, went into Dairy Queen, demanding that Donald Trump be reinstated president. You can't make this stuff up. Evidently, the police were called on him. He said that originally he was working as an undercover person with the state police, doing a major drugs thing, and then kind of changed that a little bit. Claimed he was talking to God. He was a prophet. He was going to kill all Democrats because Trump was still president. Blah, 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 rambling. Mental health treatment certainly in his future. But here's the problem. Had a handgun on him. When they went and they searched his car, had 2 more loaded handguns, a 9mm and a 22, and 62 rounds of ammunition. You got to go, gee, I wonder what toppings he wanted on his ice cream. I mean, this is craziness. And the weird thing is all the reports that we're seeing is that this midterm election is going to be close. It's going to be a close midterm. And you go, how? Exactly how is this going to be a close midterm, given the fact that, look, the Republicans have lost their minds. Out of one side of their mouth, they're saying, no, we believe in states' rights. On another side, we're going to have a nationwide ban on abortion. I think a majority of them believe that the election was stolen, and you've got people who, like this guy with the rainbow wig, gonna hold up a Dairy Queen I don't even know what the thought process that goes into, I'm going to go to Dairy Queen, and that somehow is going to equate to Trump being president again. Look, I'm not in the Q circles. I don't know, but it's very, very strange to me. But when you look at the issues that people are concerned about, high prices and inflation, I think the administration is working on that. But the future of democracy, that's a big one. That should be a no-brainer for the sane and the rational. Abortion policy, front and center. There are things that we should be working towards, working together on, and moving us in a direction that, maybe some of this, maybe this guy in the wig gets the treatment that he needs. Maybe if we don't have a president, spreading lies and propaganda, maybe the dim don't go along. And this is my problem with what the right has created. There's a genie that got out of this bottle, and I know they don't want to put it back, but I don't even know that they can put it back in this moment. because some of the people that I've met recently, wow. And this state where I'm at, the gubernatorial election here is where the dividing has really happened, because they're, and I'm talking to my working folks. There is a very clear distinction. We can talk about election deniers. We can talk about Christian nationalism. At the end of the day, Doug Mastriano would be the guy who signs right to work in this state. That would destroy workers' abilities to fight for those better wages, hours, conditions. And I know right to work sounds so nice, doesn't it? I've had people go, well, everyone should have the right to work. And you go, yeah, we agree on that. But that's not what they're talking about. There's a difference between their messaging, what they're selling you, the bumper sticker that they want you to slap on your rear end, and what the policy actually means. And what the policy means is starving worker organizations by getting freeloaders to be able to get the benefits that union members fight for and not having to pay for them. That's what that means. It's the right to freeload. And we had better figure out quickly, especially my union brothers and sisters, because you are the ones that are on the chopping block. And I find it amazing that there are union people in this day and age ready and willing to vote for Republican on any stripe right now. There used to be pro-union Republicans. There were a number of them, and I got that. There aren't today. And I know, but Rick, the Democrats aren't that great for working people either. And I agree, they're not that great, but they're movable. And I think what Biden has been doing is really been pushing in the right direction, fighting back against neoliberalism, reshoring manufacturing, investing in infrastructure. And oh, by the way, making sure that the investments that we're making in manufacturing have a union component, that in the infrastructure, prevailing wage laws are in place so that those wages aren't desperation wages, aren't transient labor wages. This is one of those moments where we've got to be moving in a direction that helps working people, that helps us move forward, and gets us in the right direction. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Make sure you email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Share your thoughts, questions, comments, because this is an important election. And like I said, I can't imagine that it's going to be this close. You go, hey, it shouldn't be. It should not be that close. But because of the misinformation that is constantly drumbeated into people's ears, because of just how divided we've gotten, we're in the spot. But for me, this rail thing's important. So if on Friday the workers end up having to strike, or the railroads lock them out, my suggestion, find a striker, adopt a striker. The community should be stepping forward in this moment and ensuring that those strikers, that they're able to support their families and that they know we've got their backs. It's that simple. I got to take a quick break. When we come back, Jeff Timmer is going to be here to share some thoughts on just how bad the Stop the Steal stuff has been from the right and some stuff around that. Going to take a quick break. Right back. Stick around.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1917. That was the day Illinois Governor Frank Loudon hoped to meet with striking streetcarmen in an effort to end their strike. Transit workers in Springfield, the state's capital, had been off the job since July 25th. But the strike had gained so much support that Springfield had now erupted into a full-blown general strike. According to the Sangamon County Historical Society, thousands of union members shut down mines, railroads, bakeries, restaurants, laundries, and construction sites following the violent crackdown of a pro-labor march by state police and militia. The march had been scheduled for September 9th. The union hoped to show support for the striking streetcarmen after a number of clashes between strikers and state militia. After they were denied a permit, many of the 50 or so unions decided to march anyway and were attacked. Some were shot. More than 40 suffered bayonet-inflicted injuries. By the 11th, most everyone in Springfield had walked off the job. Striking women shoe factory workers stopped a streetcar, pulling the scab drivers off by force. By the end of the week, as many as 12,000 members of 34 unions in the city were on strike. When telephone operators walked off the job, they paralyzed communications of the scab streetcar drivers and the state National Guardsmen. The streetcar strikers refused to meet with the governor until troops were withdrawn from the city. The governor insisted disloyal, pro-German forces were at fault for the labor troubles. By the 16th, the streetcarmen agreed to negotiate and the general strike was called off. But the company refused to meet striker demands for recognition and higher wages, or even take them back.
Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com.
For generations, workers have been punished by corporate bosses for watching the clock. But now, the corporate clock is watching workers, called digital productivity monitoring. This surveillance is done by an integrated computer system including a real-time clock, camera, keyboard tracker, and algorithms to provide a second-by-second record of what each employee is doing. Jeff Bezos, boss of Amazon, pioneered use of this ticking electronic eye in his monstrous warehouses, forcing hapless, low-paid pickers to sprint down cavernous stacks of consumer stuff to fill online orders pronto. Beat the clock or be fired. Terrific policy, exclaimed taskmasters at hospital chains, banks, tech giants, newspapers, colleges, and other outfits employing millions of mid-level professionals. So they've been installing these unblinking digital snoops to watch their employees, even timing their bathroom breaks and constantly eyeing each one's pace of work. They've plugged in new software with such Orwellian names as Work Smart and Time Doctor to count workers' keystrokes and to snap pictures every 10 minutes of workers' faces and screens, recording all on digital scoreboards. You are paid only for the minutes the computers, quote, see you in action. Bosses hail the electronic minders as Fitbits of productivity, spurring workers to keep noses to the grindstone and also to instill workplace honesty. Only the whole scheme is dishonest. No employee's worthiness can be measured in keystrokes and 10-minute snapshots. This is Jim Hightower saying employees call this digital management demoralizing, toxic, and just wrong. But corporate investors are pouring billions into it. Which group do you trust to shape America's workplace?
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So today, the interesting news in Congress, New Jersey Representative Josh Gottheimer and Republican Representative from Michigan, Fred Upton, they've unfurled some legislation titled the Electoral Count Reform and Presidential Transition Improvement Act. Yes, that is a mouthful, but the idea is maybe no more coup attempts. Maybe we, all of the things that were attempted during the end of the Trump era, maybe we don't do that in the future. We'll see where it goes. They're saying it's bipartisan. I got to find out how many Republicans other than Fred Upton signed on to this. Anyway, here to share some thoughts on, the coup attempt and maybe how we stop that in the future. I've asked Jeff Timmer to come talk with us. He's a political strategist and a senior advisor with the folks over at the Lincoln Project. Jeff, thanks for taking time for us.
Rick, thanks for having me on. It's always a pleasure.
We always love having you. So what do you make of this? This is not the first anti-coup attempt bill, but it's the latest. Thoughts?
Yeah, well, I think their heart is in the right place. Fred Upton's somebody I've known for a long time. I've known Fred for nearly 30 years, and I think he's one of the good ones. It's unfortunate that Congress is losing somebody like Fred. He's there's going to be fewer Republicans like Liz Cheney and Fred Upton and more like Marjorie Taylor Greene and Matt Gaetz. But I guess my fear is that, as often is the case with Congress, some of the efforts are too little, too late, or not enough. And that's what I fear with something like this, is that the threat that we're facing, that democracy is facing, that the country is facing from these people, these MAGA Republicans, these America Firsters, these full fascists. I don't even want to give them the semi-fascist title. They are so hell-bent on their efforts to undermine faith in democracy, to tip the scales of the election mechanism, the counting of votes in their favor, even if they don't get the majority of votes, that I don't know that something like this will necessarily stop their efforts to undermine democracy. Now, it might cause them to divert and re-strategize and look at the presidency and the electoral college differently, but it's not going to stop the demons that they've let out, that have been unleashed since 2020, that are working their way into the precinct level of the way elections are run. And that's something that we've been seeing across the country, is getting people implanted, embedded into these, right down to the precinct level where the people go in to vote, getting these MAGA election deniers, these people who have said they will, their loyalty is to Donald Trump, not the oath that they take, or the rule of law, or the Constitution, or anything. And these people are going to be by the hundreds or thousands scattered throughout the country.
No, and that's frightening. And look, in my state where I live here in Pennsylvania, we got a guy running for governor who has said that if they don't like the results, they just set it aside.
Yeah, it's insane. It really is. It's 240 plus years of the American Republic, through all of the good and all of the bad, has managed to maintain this peaceful transition of power, this faith in the democratic process, regardless of your partisanship. Partisans can fight fiercely during campaigns. When the votes are counted, somebody wins, somebody loses. The loser accepts defeat and goes on to fight the next election. That's what's always happened until 2020, when we had the first violent transfer of power and the first denial of the outcome of the election. And now that has become commonplace, and we're going to see it in 2022, and we'll see it in 2024.
Yeah, I had a Republican friend say that this is the result of 20 years of participation trophies, and because there are no losers anymore. So the Republicans who lose, Trump lost. It's that simple. That they won't admit it. They won't fess up to it. And there's no, and the poor sports. I mean, this is 20 years of poor sportsmanship come to a head. He was what he was saying.
Yeah, well, there's a divide within the Republican Party. There's a small group of people who believe the nonsense, who actually believe the talking points about the election was stolen, that there was fraud, and Donald Trump is the legitimately elected president. That's a small number. Most of the people know that it's all insane, it's all a lie, that it's all made up to placate the base, to fuel the outrage that we've seen, that keeps them motivated to punch above their weight when it comes to turnout in elections. And I think those people are even worse than the crazy ones who believe it, because they're cynically manipulating the process to maintain their own power. They're risking the entire American experiment as a result of it. It really is. It took one election. You know, they say democracy is only as safe as the next election. Well, we saw how close we came in 2020. I know how close we are in 2022, and I fear for 2024.
No, it's an excellent point you make. There's one thing about being a true believer and believing that you're fighting the good fight, and there's another thing of you just sold your soul for a couple of pennies. And for the power that comes along with abusing that. I see where you're going, but my problem is, I used to believe that there were good Republicans left, and that there was the soul of the Republican Party that was still there. But I'm looking at these election results where these crazy people are running for Secretary of State, and they got it through the primaries. There were election deniers have gotten through the primaries. You got the governor's race. What was it, New Hampshire? Now it got a crazy guy. Mm-hmm. I would love to believe that there are still good, decent, honest, hardworking conservatives who believe in those principles of the Eisenhower, even Reagan era. I'm just struggling to see the results, Jeff.
Yeah, well, they don't. There are so few of them that they could be in a museum. There are people like Fred Upton. That we talked about at the top of the segment here. There are people like Liz Cheney. There are some, but they've been forced out of the party. The cancer has it's spread, it's metastasized, it infects every cell of the Republican body now, and even those who in the way they live their lives and even in the way they conduct their own personal political business, they're not part of this MAGA routine, but they enable it either through passivity or through going along just enough to maintain their own positions. And that has the same effect of being, they might as well have been there on January 6th, those people that go along with it. Because they are corrupting and corroding the faith, the shared faith in democracy, and it only works if we all, at the end of the day, no matter what we believe, what our ideology is, what our policy differences are, what our value differences are, if the one shared things that Americans have is that we accept the results of our elections, and if we stop doing that, the whole experiment is over.
It all falls apart. I'm with you there. You're listening to the Rick Smith Show here with Jeff Timmer, political strategist, senior advisor with the Lincoln Project. Make sure you check out his podcast as well. He's the co-host of the A Republic podcast. We'll get links out on social media. You can take a look at that. Now, what's interesting is you bring up a point that I agree with you 100% on. It's about the sanctity of the ballot box. If we can't accept that, the results that come out of the voice of we the people, we've got nothing. But again, you've got people who are saying, but Jeff, it was stolen. The election was stolen. They ripped it. They robbed us. And yet what's interesting to me is the very people who are pointing their finger saying they stole it are the very people who are trying. And I looked at this story coming out of Albany, New York, where you've got this Republican county board elections commissioner from, Rensselaer County, who looked like he was going to be stuffing ballots. He had absentee ballots and used information for 8 voters without their permission. Is that not a problem?
It's a problem, and so many of. First of all, there's so little actual fraud that happens in our elections, but anecdotally, all the fraud that we seem to have since the 2020 election and since seems to be these cases of these MAGA Republican Donald Trump lovers committing the fraud. I have yet to find a story about somebody who wasn't filling out their dead wife's ballot so that Donald Trump could get the extra vote, or like this guy in New York. And it really is, it's a case where you have a group of arsonists running around saying, look, everybody, there's fires everywhere. We need more firefighters. We need to do more things to stop the spread of the fires as we're running around setting the fires. And so we have the arsonists are the ones screaming about the fires. And that's what the Republicans are doing with election integrity, election fraud, all these bills to restore the public's faith in elections. The only reason the public doesn't have faith in the elections is because of the Republicans and their nonstop propaganda that is all lies about the 2020 election.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you. So I guess the last line of question then goes: is there anything we can do about this? I mean, there have been stories. I mean, yesterday the story of Lindell, the pillow guy, got stopped at a Hardee's, and the FBI took his cell phone because there's some investigations going on. In fact, my favorite line of all of today was the FBI may have more cell phones than Verizon, as they've got my Congressman Scott Perry's cell phone, they've got Rudy Giuliani's phone, they've got Lindell's, they've got this Boris Yepstein, Mike Roman. They've got a whole bunch of these people's cell phones because they were recording their treason. I think I find it interesting.
Enter promo code MyPrison. The way to combat this is, one, there needs to be accountability. The people, there has to be a penalty. Even though the coup didn't work, it was a deliberate attempt. It was a conspiracy to overthrow a fair democratic election. There needs to be accountability. That's first. But the thing we have to remember, and all your listeners and viewers need to know, is there are more of us than there are of them. There might seem like a lot of them, but it is not half the country. It's not half the country believes this. They are a small, squealing minority who are making noise above the size of their contribution to the electorate. But the danger is that they wear us down with their crazy. Crazy it's nonstop. It goes 24/7. They don't need to sleep. Sane people get weary of this. They're just out living their lives, trying to make. They don't live and breathe politics the way that we might. But people need to vote. They need to know their vote matters. They need to get involved. Give $5, $10, whatever you can afford to a candidate that's going to protect democracy. I'll tell this as a former Republican. If you're a Republican, you need to vote for a Democrat. There are no Republicans who are going to protect democracy. You need to put your country above the party.
No, I mean, we're in one of those moments. Look, I used to have a lot of Republicans that I would have conversations with, and we had good spirited conversations because I think we all wanted the same things. We just had different ideas on how you get to those places. And I don't feel that way anymore, Jeff. I don't feel that we have that common bond with, you say a squealing minority, but somehow they keep putting people into office, and it appears this election that there's some problems.
Oh, there's risk. There's risk that people like Doug Mastriano can win, and become governor of Pennsylvania, that Tudor Dixon can get elected governor of Michigan, that Kerry Lake can get elected governor of Arizona. That's the risk. And I think we need to be alarmed. We need to be out there saying in these next 56 days, everybody worry. Vote early. If you're in an early vote state, if you can vote absentee or by mail, get your vote in. Make sure your family and friends vote. Convince them what's at stake here. It's not hyperbolic to say that democracy is hanging by a thread, and this is the most important election, certainly the most important midterm election that we've had in this country.
No, and I throw this out to people. I just had a guy tell me, well, I vote in every presidential election. I go, yeah, that's great. These are the really important ones. These are the ones that affect your life more directly than even the presidential election. This is the one you should be voting in. The midterms, the off-year elections, those are just as important. Voting is not a bystander sport. You got to democracy is not a spectator sport. You got to get in there and participate.
Yep, we get the government we deserve, and so we need to get out there, put an emphasis on what we want.
Good stuff. Jeff, I appreciate the time. Always good to talk with you.
Thank you, Rick.
Good stuff. Jeff Timmer. Make sure you check out his podcast, A Republic Podcast. We'll get links out on social media how you can do that. Going to take a quick break. Right back with your thoughts. 1-866-416-RICK. 1-866-416-7425. This is The Rick Smith Show, where working people come to talk.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1929. That was the day that Ella Mae Wiggins was gunned down on her way to a rally of striking textile workers in North Carolina. Ella Mae was born in the mountains of Tennessee. Her father was a lumberjack who was killed on the job. She and her brother had entered the textile mills to help support their family. She married another mill employee, and they had 7 children. When her husband left, Ella Mae struggled to keep her family afloat. When the Great Depression came, textile mill workers were subject to the, quote, stretch out. Owners demanded that fewer workers quicken their pace to produce the same results. In response, textile workers began to organize and strike in Gaston County, the heart of the Southern textile industry. Ella Mae became a local leader of the National Textile Workers Union. She advocated for organizing both white and black workers. She became known for leading the other workers in song. One of her most poignant songs was the Mill Mother's Lament. The lyrics told her personal struggle of a mother trying to support her children. On the day she was killed, Ella May was in a truck heading to the workers' rally. They were met by an armed mob deployed by the mill owners. The unarmed workers turned their truck around, but the mob chased them and gunned down Ella May. 5 people were charged, but they were acquitted of her murder.
We leave our homes in the morning, we kiss our children goodbye. While we slave for the bosses, our children scream and cry.
Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show.
Our grocery bills to pay, not a cent to spend for clothing, not a cent to
You're listening to The Rick Smith Show, where working people come to talk.
1-866-416-RICK, 1-866-416-7425. You got a thought, question, comment? Want to hear it? Let's go to the phones. We've got Alice on line 1. How we doing, Alice?
Oh, we're doing okay. I wanted to say, it's amazing, and I had read that the couple of articles where they said the extreme right-wing Republican nutters make up about 18% of the Republican Party, and I thought, I think it's a little bit more than that.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think it's a lot more than the 18% that they're saying, but I don't think it's all of them. My problem is what Jeff said. And my problem is I don't know the difference between the true believers, the Q crowd, the MAGA folk, and the people who are just using them for their political advantage. I see, like I said, and I think Jeff said it too. It's worse. The other guy's worse. I get the true believer. The manipulator, much worse in my view.
Oh, I agree with you. We have, and I've told you before, in our little hamlet, it's about 99.5% extreme Republicans. And we had the election there last fall where we had a new mayor and a couple of council members and whatnot. And, of course, the nutters here in town put the most extreme people on there. And my neighbor went to a meeting the other night, and she come back and she was like, they had from another borough an ordinance officer come in, and he carries a gun, and he was telling them, you can go on people's property and all this. And I said, hey, what are you going to do? I said, we know that you can't do that, but obviously they don't seem to understand the law. So I just think it's amazing.
No. Again, as Jeff said, we get the government we deserve. I
agree. I agree.
It'll be interesting to see how that plays out. I appreciate the call, Alice. Good stuff.
Bye-bye.
But there's part of me that goes, maybe we need to go through these moments. Maybe you need to have the nutters there doing crazy stuff like, yeah, you can carry a gun on other people's property. No problem. Don't worry about it. I don't know. No, I got an email from Chris, and it's one of these emails that I actually cherish these kind of things. I've always throughout the years enjoyed people who go, you know what? I don't necessarily agree with you. In fact, I've had people in the past say, I hate you. I wish horrible things for you, but you made me think about something. You made me think a little differently. Hey, maybe there's some place where we can agree. And for me, that's the good part of doing this. When you can have dialogue that makes people think a little bit differently. I'm not trying to indoctrinate. I'm simply saying, hey, this is how I view the world, and I hope people will come along. But Chris writes me, he says, I'm from the other side of the aisle, and just wanted to say how much I appreciate what you said last night about us all wanting the same thing in the long run. He says, that's absolutely spot on, a prosperous, safe, and bright future for our country and families. And look, I believe that. I believe for the majority. When we're talking about the nutter crowd, though, I got questions. I don't think that that's the same thing. But he goes on to say, I agree that as
as we all, as a nation, need to look forward together as one. I agree that some would rather to continue push us apart further rather than bringing us together, just to continue to drive that wedge between us deeper. And for what gain? We're never all going to agree on everything, but that's okay as long as we can listen to each other's concerns respectfully and come to solutions that try to accommodate everyone's concerns as best as we can. And look, that's all I can ask for from someone from quote unquote the other side, is that we have constructive conversations, and we both respect the fact that we're not always going to agree, but we want to get to a place forward. And I think that's spot on. He finishes up by saying we can accomplish so much more and are so much stronger working together. He says, I don't always agree with what you say, but I respect you. Thanks for standing up for working men and women. Wishing our nation's hardworking railroaders the best this coming Friday as a strike looks on the horizon. And sadly, I something, either a strike or a lockout, is probably going to come on Friday. We'll wake up Friday morning and find out. But it's this kind of stuff that I think is important. And these are the conversations that we want to have, especially as we embark on our working class hero tour, as we are going to go into places and talk to people that maybe you wouldn't normally. And it's going to be in moments uncomfortable. It's going to be moments of maybe things like this. Hey, I agree with you. I don't agree with you. I do. But we should have these constructive discussions and then come to some bit of understanding. Because the way I see things having played out as a working person in this country, the wealth class of this country's gotten everything they've wanted. They've got the best democracy money can buy. You go back to the golden age of our economy, my grandparents' generation. We had strong labor unions, we had strong manufacturing bases, we had communities built around manufacturing, and that was their identity. And that was the driver of their economy. And everyone prospered. The working people prospered. The rich people prospered. Not as much as they wanted. There's some truth in that. We didn't have the obscene billionaire class that we have today. But they did well. Everyone moved forward together. There was none of this giant gulf between the haves and the have-nots. The alligator jaws have gotten wider and wider. Now, fortunately, because of some of the policies of the Biden administration, those jaws are closing a little bit, but we're seeing the spasm of those jaws going to snap back on someone's behind, which means more strikes, which means more uncomfortable situations. But at the end of it, what we have to do, what you, me, the working class of this country have to do, is we have to stand together, even when it's uncomfortable. And I go back to, what I was doing on election night 2020. I was leading a strike of 55 workers. 3/4 of them voted for Trump because they were fighting the right fight, the righteous fight. It wasn't right-left. It wasn't Democrat-Republican. It was up-down. It was those people sitting in the boardrooms, in the penthouses, in the ivory towers, living lives that most people can't even fathom, demanding that working people give up more of their health care, more of their retirement, take lower wages for the wealth that they're creating. And oh, by the way, in the case of these railroaders, give up their life. Give up every waking moment, every moment, being at the beck and call of a multi-billion-dollar industry. And for what? Well, a handful of pennies more. This is where this is where the class war is. We have to be conscious of the reality of what's being presented to us. So when Warren Buffett says it's class warfare and my class is winning, but it shouldn't be, he's right. Because while they have all the money, we've still outprocreated them. There's more of us. And if only we could see that. If only we could hold hands and march forward, shoulder to shoulder. This is an opportunity for that. I'd love to hear your thoughts. You can email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Tell me what you think. Also, if you miss any portion of the program or any of our programs, the podcast is always there for you, on demand, anytime to take with you on the go. Also, make sure you grab the app, wherever your app store, Google Play, all of that stuff. Simple.
Flash flooding, debris flow causing big problems for firefighters, damaging their trucks and stranding drivers.
Torrential rains break historic California heat wave, capping a summer of extreme heat.
We are playing with fire.
All reactors shut down at besieged Ukrainian nuclear plant. Plus,
so today I ask my colleagues to stand up for our kids, for our grandchildren, and for future generations.
Looming showdown over energy permitting reform in Congress.
All of those showdowns and more straight ahead from BradBlog.com. I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
Stand by for 6 minutes of independent green news, politics, analysis, and snarky comment.
It's been a brutal week in this town. Oh my God, it's like LA was like Death Valley with In-N-Out burgers. I mean,
true. I was here. This is your Green News Report.
People in this town are going to their hot yoga class to cool off.
Okay, Desi Doyen, we finally made it through the heat wave out here in Los Angeles, out here in California. It was terrible. It was endless, but it's finally ended.
Yes, we've had some extreme swings in extreme weather.
Yep.
In Los Angeles, dozens of motorists were rescued after getting trapped by a mudslide, just one of several caused by remnants of Hurricane
KCAA Loma Linda. The Legacy KC